and welcome to episode 7 of the Moody Gooners podcast. Joining me today is my good friend Jason once again. We're going to be looking, as we've done, looking at the game we just played against Newcastle yesterday. Talking about how things sort of panned out there, and then also how that then leaves us going to the following games, and almost sort of previewing Brighton a little bit as well. Thanks to everyone for joining and taking the time out to consume this content. Again, what I wanted to do before we kind of went into the main content about the game itself, again, is just to sort of just really cover off what our mission statement really is. So, again, it is about providing insightful content to the Arsenal sporting nation and fans from other clubs if they're that way inclined. But really what we're trying to do is do something a little bit different. So essentially have a sort of a hook around mental health, our predictions at the end of the podcast. Whenever we get a prediction wrong, which for one of us is not going too well this season, we I will not say anything around that. We'll make a charitable contribution to Mind, which is our mental health charity of choice. So really, our mission statement is to provide some great content, but also have a nice hook around mental health and try and do something for the greater good, whilst entertaining the masses with any luck. So, without further ado, we're going to jump into the game. And Jason, I mean, how did you feel pre-game coming into the match at St James's Park yesterday?
Not great. I wasn't feeling confident. Normally I'm the optimist, but in this one I was. The way things have panned out, I was just thinking that. Going up to St James's Park, I mean, I know we beat Chelsea last time out, but I was not feeling confident, and I thought we would be lucky to get away with a draw here. But as we saw yesterday, I was completely wrong again.
So I know football's a mad thing, isn't it?
The one thing I'd say about yesterday was just action-packed. It's the old cliche. It was one for the neutrals yesterday.
Yeah, it was a very intense game of football, I have to say. And the one prediction I think that did come true that I never would have got in a million years is Arsenal keeping a clean sheet.
I didn't understand for that.
I would not in a month of Sundays have that done. I mean, I think in terms of how I felt, I was kind of relaxed going in because I've kind of made peace in recent weeks, like the way that Man City beat Leeds over the weekend, with Leeds just sort of sitting off them and letting them kind of just stroke the ball around. And then the fact that I'm not seeing them losing 2 out of the last 4 games necessarily. Obviously I want us to go out without I don't want us to go out with a whimper. I want us to kind of go out showing that we've got great character. I'm so proud of the way we did play in this, but we'll get into that later. But I was kind of a mixture of relaxed because I didn't on 2 accounts that I don't think we're going to necessarily win the title, but also because I expected potentially to lose, but best case, I think we both sort of predicted a draw, a goal scoring game of basketball. So I was kind of relaxed going in, and really my sort of plan is to try and enjoy the remaining games and just hope, like I say, we go out strongly. So I certainly wasn't as nervous as I was before Anfield or the London Stadium and things like that. That's for sure.
Well, the thing is now, I mean, we're recording this now Monday evening, and we've just seen the score between Everton and Brighton, and unfortunately, the eternal optimist inside me has been reignited. So much so that I now think that Everton can they maybe try and squeeze something from that game against Man City. They're fighting for their lives. They're 2 points above the relegation zone. They've just hammered Brighton. I mean, of all teams, 5-1 away. It's just nobody would have predicted that. And now I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's not done. And maybe there's a chance. But I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm in the same camp. Yesterday, I mean, I never want to see us sort of lose or draw or anything like that. But I was more relaxed about it because it seemed like there was less on the line. It does feel like, City like winning 12 from the last 13 games. It's just soul destroying. I mean, we talked about it yesterday. It's bad for the league to sort of have this sort of this dominance that they seem to just be rolling teams over, and they're not even breaking sweat half the time. It's just, yeah. So I mean, back to us. I mean, yeah, I think with what happened yesterday, it was a bit more of a relaxed vibe about it going into it. But yeah, I was very surprised with the outcome.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm just really proud of the players. I mean, I mean, if some of the fans have, given up the ghost in terms of winning the title, and I don't think it's like those fans are negative as such, but every single player out there and member of the coaching staff who were involved in that result and that game yesterday, it was almost like every single one still believes. But they don't want to get to the end of the season and maybe choke against Newcastle, drop points in other games, then get to see and go, God, City did end up dropping points. We were like, we're playing as if we want to basically ensure that we're shutting the door on any of that, and Newcastle are going to Man City are going to have to win this and go right to the end. So it'd be so easy and go, oh, we're not going to do this now. We'll just we'll start to tap out. We're mathematically secure of second place. Good season, guys, but brilliant. It was brilliant.
Credit to them. The sort of desire and fight to come back, and I mean that was phenomenal what I saw yesterday.
Yeah, phenomenal. Yeah. And then when we looked at the team news before the game, I mean, there were no changes from the Chelsea game. Gabriel, despite going down with every injury imaginable in his left leg against Chelsea, like, get off the damn pitch, man. But the fact he didn't get the fact that he did kind of play on for most of it did make me think, well, if there's something was serious, maybe he hasn't got a serious injury. Maybe it's just trying to time waste in the game, or maybe he got a bit of cramp or something like that. So he was fit to play. Kivior retained his place at the centre of defence too, but I think most Arsenal fans, me included, I mean, I'd love to know what you think about this, but I was even though I know he's been a bit off the ball recently, but I thought Thomas Partey up against Joe Linton and the sort of the physicality. I mean, Guimaraes looks like he's been eating and putting a few rump steaks away as well, and their midfield is full of muscle essentially.
Yeah,
Brazilian beef is on the menu up at St James's, but I did expect Partey to come in alongside Xhaka just to match some on that physicality front. So I was blown away that Jorginho started, and I was doubting it, to be honest. But I think he gave the ball away inside the first few minutes of the game. But then from there, he just he oozed into the game with confidence.
Yeah. I think it would have been very harsh to have dropped Jorginho given the game he had against Chelsea. And I'm a big believer that you pick players based on form, and Partey's not been on form. There are numerous incidents that we can point to over the last few games. When he's been in this side, that have led to you look at the West Ham situation. Southampton as well. I'm just not convinced at the moment. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not convinced by the player. He's a fantastic player, but he's just off form at the moment, and I don't think. I think Jorginho has done enough to warrant keeping that place for now. And I know he's a different type of player. He's not got that physicality. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was expecting more from the Newcastle midfield. I was actually, we've already, you mentioned the physicality of Joe Linton and Guimaraes. I was expecting more of them. I thought that they would sort of swallow that midfield up and control it with their sort of physical side of things. But credit to our players, the midfield trio we had there, it genuinely surprised me. I didn't think we would be able to sort of cope with that.
I think the last two games as well that we've had, this game and the Chelsea game, I think Xhaka's returned to a bit of form as well. I think that's helped. And then you're always going to get work rate out of Odegaard, even if he's not affecting the game. I mean, again, people can criticise him a bit against City, and I know he didn't, obviously didn't really influence the game from an attacking perspective, so we never really had the chance to get the ball up the field, such was City's pressing. But the thing with Odegaard, even if forget about the attacking side, he's always going to put a shift in. He's always going to close down on Harry and try and win the ball back, win the ball back quickly. So I was still surprised. I mean, I'm rather different to you. I'm kind of more of a person that I'm a bit of a horses for courses kind of guy, and I did think that maybe Partey's had a few dodgy games. Maybe you'd use Jorginho against someone like City, a bit more technical. But I was quite surprised Partey only played 10 minutes, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, who am I? Who am I to say anything? I mean, at the end of the day, I think he ranked number one for in a lot of different areas of his game. I mean, he was sensational yesterday.
Yeah, the stat came up, I think, later in the game, like 60, 70 minutes or something. And it's like, you could just see the column on Sky Sports. It was like first. It was just, he was phenomenal. He's like a metronome in the midfield, just dictating what's going on. And that is how you play that sort of deep, sort of central midfield role. It was beautiful to see, and I think we combated the sort of physical element to Newcastle's play with game management. If you like the sort of dark arts of the game, that I didn't think we had that in our locker, and I think we rolled that out superbly yesterday. I mean, Jacko was at it as well. It just sort of took the sting out of the game. It was brilliant to see.
Yeah, exactly. I think I do think we've become better than that. I think Jesus is quite good at winning those sort of those clever free kicks, and Saka also to a point. But all these Newcastle fans complaining after the game about Arsenal time wasting, and what they did to
exactly
us
the same
when
to
they
us.
came. They were time wasting at 0-0 after about 10 minutes. I mean, there's a difference. The difference when you're winning 1-0 and things are on the line and it's in the second half and you start to go down with a few injuries. And really, like, the time wasting seemed to really kick in the second half, didn't it? But Newcastle to be doing that. I remember their fans celebrating when they got a corner as well. And they're just so, I've never seen a more negative side at the Emirates, but they're in no position whatsoever. I mean, it's part of the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
If Newcastle were winning 1-0 with 10 minutes left, they'd be doing the same. And don't get me wrong, I don't. I'd rather that was out of the game completely. But all I care about is us getting the 3 points. But let's what was your take at the start of the first half? I mean, I think it's fair to say that sphincters were a tensing when we were watching it. The first 5-10 minutes.
The first 5-10 minutes, I was like, well, yeah, maybe I was even being a little bit too bold with my predictions of a 2-2 draw or something. But I just thought, oh wow, this is going to play out exactly the way that I thought it might play out. We were under the cosh. We were losing the 50-50s, the second balls. They had more desire, more determination. The Jacob Murphy chance as well, when he hit the inside of the post after like 1 minute, I think it was. I mean, I thought, oh, we're in for a long afternoon here. We could get a pasting at this point. It was unbelievable, and
it felt very on brand, didn't it? It felt very But if you had to sort of if you were doing marketing a spiel and had to kind of summarize what the St James's Park experience is, that was it in a nutshell. I mean, the crowd were getting up. Newcastle, as you rightly say, they were winning. The physical battle was being won. They were basically, every time they went near our goal, something negative from our perspective was happening. And I was fearing the worst at that point. To be fair,
their front players, Murphy, Willock was getting on the ball as well. I thought he had a pretty decent game. Isaac was doing well. Wilson, I just thought they were just going to overpower us basically at that point. But I mean,
then we had the penalty award. I mean, after I think that was after about 8 or 9 minutes. We had Murphy obviously hitting the inside of the post. And the crowd were getting up, and then the referee points to the spot 8 minutes in. And then it took Chris Kavanagh an absolute age to.
I mean, the amount of replays we saw. The amount. It's funny because I watched the extended highlights just not long ago before we started recording this, and for some, I don't know, weird reason, it was the Newcastle NUFC sort of extended highlights version, and the commentators on there, they're like, oh, that's a scandalous decision to overturn that penalty, and I just thought to myself, what are you watching where that isn't going to be overturned? Because it's clearly hit him on the thigh. I mean, I was just.
And not only that, like, there's always that talk about where the arms are positioned.
Well, the arm's behind his thigh.
He literally he could not. He had his arm behind his lower back. It was. He couldn't have twisted it in more of an awkward position. But even regardless, I mean, even if it did, I think if it doesn't touch his thigh, I think you're looking at that and saying, well, it might. If it did, let's say for argument's sake, it did kiss his lower arm.
It would have been harsh, I think.
It would have been harsh, not from a proximity perspective, but purely because the hand was kind of like twisted away, he was getting it, but it was definitely not in an unnatural position. That's for
it's not
sure.
like he threw his arm out.
Yeah. So I mean, the argument might be, yes, it hit his thigh, but did it then go on to hit his arm? But I think if his arms kind of waved, flapping out outside of his body, it gets given, all day. But I just think it's just mad. I mean, it's a worry that it took the officials so long. I think it took like 3 or 4 minutes to.
Yeah, the amount of replays we saw on Sky Sports, I was like, we've seen it already. You only need a couple of views to sort of go, right, it's hit his leg. It's not, and then it's not even gone. It's not hit his arm. So where's the debate? I just didn't understand. And then listening to these commentators going, "Oh, this is scandalous to overturn that." Well, I mean, what were you watching? If it was the other way around, you'd be doing your nuts.
I was going to say exactly that. You've got to look at it in that way, but it wasn't clear, was it? I mean, people saying, is it a clear and obvious penalty? Well, no, it definitely did hit I remember it hitting the crest, the Arsenal crest on his shorts, and then flicking up. But then I looked at his arms, and they were like properly tucked around. My actual main anger of that whole passage of play was, why the hell was Bruno Guimaraes just allowed to stand on the edge of the 18-yard box with no player within about 6 to 8 yards of him, and just able to kind of get that shot away? I mean, for me, that was synonymous with us sleeping at the far post when Jacob Murphy had his shot. And I think when you've got the crowd up and you're defending like that inside the first 8 minutes or 10 minutes or so, it's in the post at that point. I remember just thinking it's going to happen. It's just when it happens, and if we've got any kind of response, really.
We definitely rode our luck, for that first sort of 10, 12 minutes or so, with the penalty as well. It was, we needed a reaction. And, I mean, lo and behold, a couple of minutes later, we go up the other end and Captain Fantastic does his thing. What were your thoughts?
I just found it. I found it one of the most kind of strange halves of football I've ever seen. I think
because it was completely against the run of play, that was then. Yeah,
prior to Odegaard putting that one in the bottom corner, we were completely up against it. We were looking. Okay, it was not a penalty, but we were looking nervous. We were not defending well. As you say, we were losing. It was a real chalk and cheese, because as soon as that ball hit the net, we just completely, all the pressure just seemed to just dissipate, rather than make Newcastle kind of more angry to then come back into the game. I felt like it was almost like a pressure valve, kind of releasing the pressure, and then and then it was one-way traffic to us. I mean, I've never seen such a swing. I mean, I know they always say goals win, goals are basically the currency of the game and the most important thing, and they change the momentum and blah 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 blah. But still plenty of time for Newcastle to come back and win that game. But what blew me away was just how much control, how much goal threat, and how calm and composed, and it just totally settled us down.
I mean,
and there was no marking. No one was really closing Jorginho down. He was able just to sort of stroke the ball to his left, and the ball. I can't for the life of me remember the defender, but he shot from about 25 yards. The ball's gone through the legs of a Newcastle defender. And it reminded me a bit of the goal he scored at Spurs this season. And there's a bit of you that looks at him and go, he's not exactly whacked it so hard that he's going to take the net off. And there's a little bit of you that goes, how's he managing to score these kind of goals that they're hit firmly, they hit well, they're accurate, obviously, but they're not. They feel that there's something about those goals.
Beaters, aren't they? I know what you mean. They're just sort of they're a bit they almost come across a little bit scruffy, but they just sort of. They're the right power. They've got, the right positioning. I mean, Nick Pope, he's a tall goalie. I mean, it's not like the ball has gone right into the corner there. I would have expected maybe a little bit more from him. I mean, am I being a bit too critical, do you think? I mean, maybe, I don't know.
No, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, when the shot left his boot, I wasn't sitting there going, oh, that's in. I thought, oh, great, we're having a pop. Let's see what happens here. But I think you've got to ask questions how it ends up nutmegging a Newcastle player 10 yards, after it leaves Odegaard's boot. But yeah, you're probably right. But obviously, we're not complaining at that point. But it just blew my mind how we were a nervous mess at the back for the first 15 minutes. Then for the next half an hour, it was we were at half time thinking, God, our XG is going to be 3 or
Well,
4 here.
yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely mental.
I mean, I mean, if you take the first sort of up until we scored the goal, after that we probably should have been home and dry. The amount of not just chances, but clear cuts, one-on-one situations that we created. I mean, I know Newcastle had a chance right at the end, or just before the end, which was a Willock chance. It was a great save from Ramsdale. But I think prior to that, we had 2 clear-cut chances with Martinelli and Saka, who were both through, and they just lacked a bit of composure. I mean, we've spoken before about Saka, of late. He does seem like maybe his confidence or his levels dropped a little bit. Maybe he's a bit tired or something. He's a little bit off the boil, because if you look at the chance he'd had, I think if that's a couple of months ago, that's in the back of the net. Whereas he's sort of, I mean, the first thing you do with these things is you've got to get it on target, but it was a decent height. Again, for Martinelli, a little bit inconsistent with the finishing there. They were clear-cut chances, and I think they should have. One of them should have gone in. And then we had the Ødegaard one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Saka one, like you said, it was a good height, and I think with such a tall goalkeeper like Nick Pope, you've got to try and keep the ball low, in my view.
Get it on the deck.
You've got to just blast it along the ground and aim for either corner, near post, far post, doesn't really matter. I think you're hitting it chest height to a goalie like that. And for me, I don't think Saka played like he wasn't confident in any way. I do believe it's a fatigue thing. And people say, oh, why is he going to rest our best player? He's capable of doing things. But that's why you rest him in other games, because when he then comes to playing at St James's Park, that ball's being blasted in the bottom corner because he's feeling fresh. And I haven't got the stats to hand. I mean, maybe we should try and find them while we're recording this. But the amount of minutes he's had, in the Premier League this season, compared to other players, is frightening. I mean, it's absolutely frightening. I'm just actually trying to pull up the numbers now, but for me that was a fatigue kind of thing. And I think again, I sort of expected more. And Martinelli did really well to kind of break the offside trap and went through just like a very sort of laboured, almost like a bit of a tentative prod. And if there's one player, who you're expecting who's got that confidence, who scored the goals recently, I think Martinelli is your player. And you want. I mean, I'm looking at Saka here. He's played 2,951 minutes.
Jesus.
But that's this season. But actually, that's 6th on the list in the Premier League. Harry Kane. I mean, but Harry Kane, he just sort of stands around with his jaw hanging out in the middle of the park most of the time. But he's played. Yeah, he's Saka's number 6 on the list, behind Tony, Salah, Iwobi, Jared Bowen, and
Iwobi has played
Kane.
that much football, has he? Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that one.
But I think the thing for me with Saka, it's almost like a cumulative thing as well. Like, he was number 5. He played 3,000 minutes in the previous season, and he's never rested. I mean, again, this is just the Premier League, and he's never rested when it comes to
he plays in the European stuff as well.
Yeah, games where you think, okay, we're playing Dundalk at home, or a pub side from Eastern Europe. Maybe you don't play him for the full 90, or you maybe bring him on for 10 minutes at the end just to keep his legs ticking over. But yeah, I do. I mean, again,
we're a bit more competition, aren't we, over there on that right side? I think just something to sort of cover. I mean, I think Arteta's beginning to sort of like Nelson a bit more, but I don't think he fully. I mean, we spoke about this I think at the last podcast, that the sort of level, the drop off. I mean, I'm not expecting to get someone of the same caliber as Saka, but an upgrade on someone like Reece Nelson, that can sort of play that bit of role, take Saka out of the firing line a bit, where he's not needed. That might be something that we look at in the summer, I think.
I agree, and I think word on the street is that Reece Nelson's rejected a contract offer purely because I think it's not to do with that, to do with
I don't blame him.
I think he just wants more minutes at this age. Yeah. I mean, in his career, to be honest. I mean, he's at a point now where he needs to be playing a bit more. It's a shame because he actually would potentially be a useful player to have, but he's 23 years old now, and he's at that age where he's got to be he's probably got to be making more of a mark. But I mean, again, we're not privy to the numbers and the stats that the club have themselves, obviously, but there is a bit of me that where I do see the odd game where it does feel very unnecessary to even be bringing him on or off or giving him these minutes. But, and I think, unfortunately, you come to these parts of the season. I mean, I do remember Newcastle last season where I feel like there was a lot. We had injuries, but the players who were out there were fatigued as well.
We were threadbare last season. I mean, the difference between now and then, I mean, I guess that's the barometer, isn't it? Is to compare where we were, because we played them at a similar sort of stage last year. And I know we had a couple of injuries, but we have a couple of injuries now. Saliba's out as well. So, the difference it's astounding, really. Where we were 12 months ago to where we are now, it's incredible. And I do think it's only going to get better, but this summer there needs to be the right level of investment to sort of build that quality and depth to it. Or sorry, I should say the depth of quality that we need to take somebody like Saka out of the firing line a little bit, give him a little bit of a rest, so he doesn't have to play the amount of football he is, so that when you get to like Newcastle, he's a bit more fresh.
That's exactly it. And I mean, I believe my personal belief is that when you sign a player for the starting lineup every single time, if you can, because obviously you're getting better. Like the aim actually should be for us to try and find a player in that position better than Saka. Because if Saka's on your bench,
well, we haven't got that kind of money, mate. I mean,
I'm just saying, like, that should be like your North Star, if you like. That should be. I don't agree with buying players who are just going to sit on the bench. I believe that if you're always trying to upgrade your starting 11, then suddenly your starting 11 players are on the bench, and suddenly that's where the depth is. I think if you're buying bench players, bench warmers, you're probably not, the rate of progress is not going to be quite as quick. I'm not saying that Saka shouldn't play or I want him on the bench next season, but the aim's got to be to try and uncover a nugget of gold, through the scouting network or something like that. And I can see Nelson going, to be honest. And the good news is we get a fee, I believe. So I wish him all the best if he does go. But we don't want to have a situation like we had with Hector Bellerin, where had no one. Bakary Sagna left, and then he picked himself pretty much every week. And then also the hunger can. I mean, the hunger can also drop. That's the other thing as well. Like if Saka, he's a superb player, the levels that he reaches, but you wonder, like, if it carries on into next season where there's no competition for him, is that going to affect his desire? Is he going to get complacent? I mean, I know it depends character to character.
I think the guy, given he comes through the youth academy, I think, and he loves the club. I mean, I genuinely do think that he lives and breathes Arsenal. So I would never question that, but I do think that you need a healthy level of competition. I mean, you look at, the comparison for us, we must be looking at Man City, and you look at them and they've got 2-3 players in each position, which are incredible. I mean, look, if Haaland gets out injured, they bring in Alvarez, who's a World Cup winner. They're brilliant players. The players they've got in the middle of the park, I mean, they were playing Bernardo Silva at left back to get him in the team, and it's like, it's unbelievable the strength and depth that they've got. So we do need to pick that up, I think, and I think that will be addressed in the summer.
Yeah, and I think before we get back to the Newcastle game, I think the thing that I probably want to finish on with this little bit of chat here is that I think that this is probably a summer where we do have a bit of money as well. Obviously, the Champions League, but I think it's probably the first summer we've got some saleable assets that maybe some fans won't want to see leave. I'm thinking the likes of Tierney. I'm hoping Smith Rowe doesn't go, but if someone comes in with 35, 40 million, maybe Balogun might go, something like that. So we might actually be able to top up what should hopefully be a healthy war chest, as they always call it, with some, we've not been able to sell at all well as a club. We must be one of the worst clubs going for selling. And I think if we can top that up, then suddenly we can start to get a little bit more. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to join Arsenal, both from a monetary perspective, footballing reason, location wise, the way the club's based, the facilities, the direction of travel with the project. The great thing about having these players at this age profile is that there's growth there, and that's the most exciting thing of the lot.
genuinely, we've got to be one of the most desirable clubs to join. And I know, some people may listen to this and go, "Oh, you're just being biased because you're an Arsenal fan." But if you look at it on so many different levels now, like the trajectory of the club, where it's going, the brand of football we play, the group of players that we've got, the youthfulness of the team that will only get better. Well, we hope it'll only get better, but I think it will. The location of the club, the way that it's run, it must be so appealing, to foreign players, and we all read the sort of rumor columns and things like this that go on. But I mean, from what I'm reading, a lot of players' agents are like reaching out to Arsenal that 12 months ago probably weren't reaching out. And so this summer is going to be, I think we should be in a good position to sort of attract what we want, especially now that we can offer the top level European competition again.
For me, it's two things. It's the Champions League football, and it's also the project. And that word's bandied around, but with Arsenal, if you contrast us with Chelsea at the moment, there's definitely a project there. I mean, you don't have to even be massively smart about football to know that there's a plan and there's an alignment from the owners all the way down to the program sellers outside the ground. So that's going to be attractive. I think Arsenal look like a well-run, slick operation, and we've been in the doldrums 2, 3, 4 years ago. But it's amazing. Like it's so good. I feel so confident. Signings that we make, I've got full trust in the right people, and as long as the owners dip their hand in their pocket a little bit, and to be fair, I think they've proven that they have done. I think that's key.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we get back to this scintillating
game?
I mean, we should have really been putting the game out of sight with Odegaard missing the last action of the first half. But really, I did notice the game sort of bubbling over. It was probably a good time. I think Xhaka potentially was walking into a sticky situation with Callum Wilson. Newcastle didn't return the ball back after Xhaka went down injured, and Xhaka had a bit of a set to with Wilson, and then we obviously had Gabriel Jesus and Kieran Trippier, sort of having a bit of verbal there. The game was starting, but I quite liked it, to be honest. I have to say, A, it kind of reminded me of the good old days, as they say, but B, it also made me think, well, we've got the goal advantage, and Newcastle starting to lose their heads a bit here, and no one can, in my opinion, you can't operate at the highest level if you've gone over that line between determination and like hunger to do something. If you've just lost that composure, you start making mistakes, because the brain doesn't talk to the feet as quite the way it should. So I was kind of happy to see it, to be honest. But I do think if the game had gone on for another 10 minutes, there probably would have been a bit of naughtiness, and maybe you might have been looking at a red card for someone, maybe a good friend, Granit.
What I will say is that I know, that there's the potential for things to boil over, but I think Arteta deserves a lot of credit for this, because the way that we set out and the way that we were sort of we were prodding them and provoking them a little bit, and I think that was a deliberate ploy, because it was to sort of rile them up a little bit so that they would lose focus. I think that stuff is, I mean, I didn't believe that we had that capability to play like that, and it was in our sort of makeup, if you like, as a team to sort of to behave and play like that. That's really surprised me yesterday, in a positive way, because I thought, are we too nice as a team? Are we, sometimes we can get a bit. I know we've sort of quelled the whole, that rhetoric from years ago, or Arsenal, they got soft underbellies and things like this. That's been quelled in the last, couple of years or so. But yesterday, what I saw from us, I hadn't seen in such a long time, and I was very impressed with that. And it really sort of, it took me aback. I was just like, wow, I didn't think we had that in us, and it was so encouraging to see that we can adopt and go to such a way and play like that, because we know that the other team are going to be physical and want to get involved and embroiled in all that sort of stuff. But in the same breath, you do have to wonder if it gets a bit too far, if we are going to see, as you pointed out there, Xhaka, if we're going to see the old version of him coming out and going over someone's ankle.
Yeah, and I do feel Xhaka these days, he he's definitely. We all know it's pretty obvious what he's done from a footballing ability perspective. But I have noticed this season that I remember when we I think it was when we played at Stamford Bridge. He went and did some time wasting over sort of on the byline to the end. We were attacking in the second half, and I remember seeing that, and he was kind of like standing over the top of the ball or over one of the players. And it was starting to kick off, and he kind of had a bit of a smirk on his face that he was kind of for the first time ever, he was sort of able to kind of get the desired impact of kind of riling up the opposition, but he was completely zen, if
He's
you
in
like.
control of it, yeah.
Yeah, and that was good. I haven't really seen him this season get to a point where you think, oh, he's going to explode here. He's able just to push it to the line and then just kind of pull himself back, which is great. Because to be honest, that Newcastle were losing their heads, and we did see in the second half a bit of a continuation of that. I felt. I mean, again, the thoughts on the start of the second half. I mean, I felt that they came out very similar. Again, it was almost like a bit of a carbon copy.
Half. Yeah, mirror image of what the sort of first half was. You know, they came flying out of the blocks. You know, Eddie. I mean, they did have chances in the first half. Let's not dispute that. They hit the post. They had a couple of chances. Willock had one as well at the end of the first half. So I do think we rode our luck a bit, and you do need that a little to win games sometimes. But yeah, the second half they came flying out at us, and I was like, this. If they'd managed to get the goal, it would have changed the whole game completely. But credit to us, we dug in, and we managed to, get more control, more possession, start sort of winning a few more duels, and I thought we did. I thought we grew into the second half. I think is probably the best way to sort of say it. What do you think?
We had two. Well, we had sort of two. Again, they hit the post early. Cross from Jacob Murphy and Isak. Sort of. I mean, to be honest, that was from close range. I mean, Ramsdale's not saving that if it's on target or half a foot to the left. That's in all day long. But then again, I feel like I'm talking about Aaron Ramsdale week in, week out at the moment in terms of big game saves. I mean, I think the one in the first half, he spread himself. It was not a great effort by Willock. It sort of just cannoned in off Ramsdale's legs. But that reflex save from Cher, not Sonny and Cher, but is it Fabian Cher?
Fabian Cher, yeah.
Fabian Cher, headed at Ramsdale from 4 yards out. 5 minutes into the second half, and what a save! I mean, you might say, well, did Ramsdale know anything about it? But you can see his arm, he's motioned at the ball. He's shown incredible reflex, like split second reflexes, just to throw a hand out at it instinctively, and then we're able to kind of clear our lines. But I think again, it's Ramsdale. Really, again, in football, the focus is always on that kind of stuff. But Ramsdale really is just kind of like laying down the foundations for us to get 3 points here. And then we saw other things as well, where Granit Xhaka puts his body on the line and blocks in the second half as well.
Well, that tackle, it was the Willock chance. That tackle, it was immense. It was truly immense. I mean, that just sort of that summed up what he was about in that game. He genuinely showed great leadership. That was the captain that we wanted to have when he was given the armband a few years ago. It was beautiful to see. Just the one thing I want to kind of go back to is that sort of passage of play where Newcastle had those chances. Now, I'm not one to sort of dig players out, but I do need to highlight something here. Zinchenko. I think he needs to be taken out of the starting 11. I know what he offers with that extra man in midfield, but if we look at that sort of passage of play here, there was the headed chance for Isaac, which Jacob Murphy, he basically sat Zinchenko down, and then after that, because that was then the chance for Fabian Cher. First of all, Zinchenko gave away the free kick for Trippier to get the cross in. And then second thing, the defending from that resulting free kick, Zinchenko was in no man's land. And that, I think, if I'm not wrong, maybe wrong, but I think Cher was sort of Zinchenko's man, and he's just left him for a free header. Now, I'll support our guys through and through, but I think he's looked a little bit off the pace of late. We mentioned like Saka earlier. There are a couple of players that they could be given a bit of a rest here and there. I think there's an argument to be had for Zinchenko to be given a bit of time on the bench. Give Tierney a bit more play time.
And we've seen Zinchenko fell asleep for, I think it was Walcott's goal against Southampton.
Yeah,
and he also fell asleep with the ball slipped in behind him for Chelsea's goal.
Yeah,
as well. I mean, again, but back to my horses for courses thing. Do you not think Zinchenko, like, you want him to be playing at Emirates? At the Emirates, at home to Brighton, and at home, and away to
I don't know,
Forest and Wolves. I mean, I'm kind of the school of thought similar to wanting almost Party. I mean, again, the Party thing's a moot point because Jorginho was man of the match. I mean, he was absolutely brilliant. But there's a bit of me that thinks, was Zinchenko the right pick for a game like this, like a physical game where maybe we're gonna have to defend do a bit more defending compared to when we'd play at home against maybe a slightly lesser side. Would Tierney have represented a good pick from the outset? I mean, he came. The great thing I think with Arteta though is that rather than make these substitutions after 70, 75 minutes like he does often, I've noticed in the last month he's developed a bit more ability. He's making changes. He's kind of going. I think he's getting more. Again, because he's such a relatively inexperienced manager. I think he's now starting to get a bit more confidence. So I think before maybe he didn't want to make changes in case he got it wrong, and then people go, "Oh, look what Arteta did." But this time, I think he kind of spots things and he goes with his gut a bit more. And after the hour mark, Zinchenko was off and Tierney was on, and I think Tierney kind of got stuck into the shithousery as well, which was great. But I personally, I agree with you. I think Zinchenko, I love Zinchenko, the way he plays, his technical level. He's very important to how we build the play up. But I think in the last 3 or 4 games, he's made a few errors from a defensive perspective. And, as it turned out, we did manage the game really well, I thought, in the second half. Again, we weathered an early storm, but after about 5-10 minutes into the half, we didn't create as many good chances in the second half as the first half. But I never really I was almost waiting for like the kitchen sink to be thrown as the second half wore on a bit.
It wasn't,
but it never really came, and I felt that we managed it well as well. I felt that we actually started to maybe sit back and try and just hit them on the counter attack in the second half, and actually just do better game management, a bit more shithousery to try and waste a bit of time, go down with a few injuries, and try and use Martinelli's pace, particularly on the counter attack, which I like.
You set it up nicely. That's exactly sort of what happened, wasn't it? It was. I think they were attacking. Lofted ball, bit of a cross, kind of looped header outwards. It kind of comes out to the left, and I think Jesus picks it up, and then he sort of plays in Martinelli. He just runs down the wing. Turns. He shows Trippier one way, takes it a bit further out, and then drills the ball across, and old Fabian's there to toe poke it in for the second goal.
Yeah. I think if he doesn't get a foot on it, Odegaard's got to tap in. It's in that famed kind of corridor of uncertainty. He's hit it in there at pace, hasn't he? He's blasted it along the deck. It's a dangerous ball in, and I just felt we really used Martinelli really well in that second half, because we started to sit. I don't think we retreated really far back and defended in a way that was going to encourage Newcastle. But I felt that we just we stepped off 5 or 10 yards and just were solid, but used that pace on the counter. And then I actually did notice Newcastle starting to lose their heads. I mean, what the hell?
They really did, yeah.
What the hell was Cher doing, smashing into Jesus like that on the touchline? And that was just outrageous. I mean, there's physicality, but then there's leaving a bit in, like a forearm smash, and Newcastle were really losing. That Anderson that came on, he was a dirty bit of gear as well.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was not. Yeah, it was not great from them, to be honest. I'm all for like the game becoming physical like it used to be, to a point. But I felt that on another day, maybe with some different refereeing, or if Newcastle were away from home, maybe they might have got a red in that game. I really do feel there were a few naughty things. I mean, Guimaraes, he stamped down on Saka's foot, heel in the first half. There was a few little naughty bits of,
their quality, their level dropped. Their level, their quality level sort of drop, and you could tell the difference between where the two clubs are, where the teams are, in terms of their ability. I don't think Newcastle had an answer, and they sort of reverted to this sort of, just vengeful sort of, just wanting to sort of stick their foot in and leave it in. Was it Anderson? I think it was. It was a couple of. He left his foot in on one of the challenges towards the, and you're just thinking, yeah, you're doing that because you're frustrated and you're just annoyed, and it's petty, really. And I think that just showed where Newcastle are right now. They're a team in transition. I say a team in transition. They remind me very much of the sort of early Manchester City type. When you ended up with like people like Richard Dunn and Robinho playing alongside each other. it's that I mean, they've still got like Newcastle got like Dan Burn at left back, and then they've got like Bruno Guimaraes in midfield sort of thing. There's a bit of a mismatch in some of in their sort of squad.
I think Eddie Howe was. I mean, again,
he's worked wonders.
Well, they seem to always give this award to whoever the manager is who wins the Premier League, but I think Eddie Howe or Arteta should be winning.
I think it should be Arteta.
Because Eddie Howe was basically, I mean, if you think about it, they've signed Guimaraes, Isak, and then maybe Sven Botman, like the more sort of bigger name signs, but they've still got a lot of kind of players that traditionally would be kind of struggling in the lower half of the Premier League, but they're going to probably get Champions League this season. It's incredible what he's done with the players. I know they've got money, but they've not really gone out and bought, spent massive yet. I mean, I'm sure it will happen, but yeah, I think Eddie Howe's worked absolute wonders. But and actually, I was kind of, obviously we're all still scarred rather with that 4-4 from back in the day. But when I saw Almiron and Saint Maximin coming up for Murphy and Willock, I'm thinking that's actually they've strengthened their front line essentially. But because I'm a big fan of Saint Maximin with his direct running, his strength, and he just caught. I mean, he had that shot, he skewed it wide, but at no point really did I was sitting there going, "Oh, this 4-4 thing is going to happen again." Like we seem to be calm. There was a serenity. Almost since the first goal.
Once the second goal went in, I just thought, we've got this. We're in control here. We know what we're doing. We seemed very certain of what we're doing, and actually how to execute that and play out the game, which is something I think we've lacked. If we look back before the sort of, before you look at like the Liverpool game, the West Ham game, we were running around a little bit like headless chickens in those games, and I think we really sort of we just pressed home the advantage yesterday, and it was I was just like, wow, this is unbelievable. I couldn't believe that we were able to sort of see that result out and keep a clean sheet up there as well. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we see the game out 2-0, great victory. One, a statement result, to be fair. I mean, what were your post game thoughts? I mean, I was kind of surprised that we'd actually won. But then for me, it was that real sense of pride in the players, like real love for the playing group, because I think Arsenal teams of old would have thought, oh, we're not going to win it this season. We'll go up there, we'll go through the motions a bit. But this team were literally dying for the shirt out there. And as a fan, I mean, it should be what every player, given how much they get paid, and and the bare minimum should be playing out of your skin or working hard. You can't guarantee a win, obviously, but the players were literally just left everything on the line. I think back to again that block by Xhaka.
I was thinking exactly the same thing.
The work rate by Gabriel Jesus. I think you were about to say that Xhaka's block, almost like that was the symbol of
it. Epitomised the entire game. That sort of challenge coming in, that desire, the hunger to not give an inch. It was beautiful. There was so much character involved in that display. It was just beautiful to see. Again, I think the midfield, the driving force of Ødegaard, a real captain's performance, always looking to sort of get on the front foot, the desire to sort of make things happen. I mean, Jorginho, we already mentioned. I think he got man of the match. It's just impeccable. I think Xhaka, I think. Again, great game management. The little nuances that he's able to do from his experience that maybe some of the younger players don't have yet, and he's able to sort of, you alluded to it. I think before, he's he knows he's in full control of what he's doing. He just doesn't need to be provoked too much. If he's able to, be in a safe space to sort of play that way, he knows exactly what he's doing and how to sort of see that game out. And I think it was brilliant. I think those three for me were the sort of standout. I thought Jesus caused havoc again, Martinelli as well. Yeah, I'm very, very impressed. The one thing I would say, I was expecting more from Newcastle. I think I said it earlier, the Joe Linton Guimaraes thing. I thought, oh God, they're going to sort of hound and be all over us. But they seemed a little bit off the pace to me, those two. And I was expecting more. And I think, I think those two really sort of, the game sort of passed them by a bit. They seemed a bit begrudging, leaving their foot in a few times with challenges. Negatives from us, I would say, I've already sort of highlighted it, but I say Zinchenko, there's something to be possibly done there going forward. That's something to have a look at. But other than that, I was honestly, it was unexpected, but I'm absolutely delighted. I didn't think that we had that sort of ability to play a bit like that within us at the moment, at this point, at where we are as a group. But very impressed.
Yeah, I mean, I think from an attacking perspective, other than the first 5-10 minutes of each half, I think we actually had more volume of quality chances. I mean, the XG for Arsenal, I think would, I actually don't know. Maybe you can find the stats, but I'd say it would be probably 3 or 4 XG for this game. And then from a defensive perspective, I mean, we hadn't kept a clean sheet for 8 games prior to this one. So to be able to keep that clean sheet and whilst also be able to kind of have that volume of quality chances created at the other end was just really really satisfying. I would also say I did have that sort of slight regret. I mean, you heard me say after the game that why did we have to stuff up against Southampton and West Ham? I mean, I know West Ham beat Man United yesterday, thanks to old Lurpak hands himself, David De Gea. But I can't believe it's not De Gea. But there was an element of me going, I'm only that obviously delighted with the win. I love how the players showed up for the game defensively, fought for the shirt, lethal going forward when we needed to be. But there is that tinge of regret. Like, why couldn't we converted a couple of these draws to victories? But let's just keep our fingers crossed, I guess. I mean, I'm now quietly confident that we're going to have. I mean, Brighton's still going to be a tough game. I mean, they're all going to be fairly tough, but the Brighton game is still going to be a pretty tough one, I think. But obviously, going into the game against us off the back of a 5-1 defeat, that you never know, they might be a bit broken off the back of that. So I'm quietly confident now we can win our final 3 games of the season. For me, it's more, can Everton or Brighton do us a favour when they play City? And to be honest, I'm still doubtful that can happen. I think if something is going to happen to City, it has to happen in this Everton game, because I think there's still there's enough time.
There's enough games for something else to happen.
Yeah. I think this is probably the one that's hard because it's sandwiched in the middle of their Champions League semi-final.
I completely agree. I think and this is a big if, because nobody expected Everton to win today 5-1, at the Amex. For me, it all comes down now to this Everton game. I hear what you're saying about the frustrations of the Southampton and West Ham game. On paper you would look at those two and go, well, they're wins, but the Chelsea game and the Newcastle game afterwards would be probably more, a harder thing to sort of get over the line. But we've got those, and we've stuffed up the other ones. It is frustrating, but if we win our remaining 3 games, we get to 90 points. That's an incredible achievement. I mean, I know that's
the same as what the Invincibles got as well.
Yeah, I mean, we got 90 points. I mean, I think in recent history, Liverpool got more and still managed to lose the league. But that's the kind of level you need to be at to win it. And yes, it sucks that we could end up at 90 points and not without a league championship medal around their necks. But them's be the levels. We have to. I have to take it on the chin. It's frustrating. It really is frustrating. If we'd managed to get the win, even if we got the draw at West Ham and we got the win against Southampton, we would still need Man City to slip up, but instead of slipping up in 2 games, we'd only need them to slip in 1 game.
It's frightening, isn't it? Because I feel like for the first half of the season they weren't average by any means, but they looked like a slightly patchier version of themselves. But they've just hit this run of form. I think they've got.
It's
I think they're 11. I think
they're
11 Premier League wins in a row at the moment. So you do. There's a bit of you that goes, well, that can't last, surely.
Well, this is it, So
I must admit, I watched the start of their game against Leeds, and I was just so disappointed with how Leeds showed up or didn't show up. I mean, there's one thing sitting off and being compact defensively, but to not even kind of chase down and harry Man City and put a little bit of fear into them, or put just. To me, they look like a club that's on the way down. But this is not a Leeds United podcast. But it was disappointing because I think, I'd expect to a new manager. I think at least the players who put themselves around the pitch a little bit, even though it is Big Sam.
Well, I'm well and truly going to be rooting and become a Scouser for the Everton game. It's possible after the result today. It is very, I've seen, that scoreline has lifted my optimism once again. But yeah. So should we look at some predictions then?
Yeah. So let's so just as a reminder, these are the predictions that if we screw them up, we donate to charity
every week.
which Jason's basically. We've had 6, and he's screwed up every single one. So great news for our charity of choice, Mind. And actually, we both screwed up this week, which is great because that's money into the charity, and also it means that our slight pessimism about the game of St James's turned out to be fake news. So you had a 2-2 draw as being the final score. That obviously didn't happen, and I had a goal involvement each for Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli. Obviously, one of those came true, but I don't care. I'm sure you're feeling the same, that a win's a win, and what a win it was.
Oh, I know. I don't. The win is what I want.
Exactly. So, did you want to kick me off with your prediction for the Brighton game?
Do I go score or do I just go for player? I'm messing up every week, so
you're coming off a low base.
I'm coming off a low. I am going to go for an Arsenal win with a Gabriel Jesus goal.
Right. Nice. Okay, I'll make a note of that. I'm going to go for Gabriel Jesus will score and Bukayo Saka will have an assist in this game. Very specific, but
wow.
I think it's time that Saka return to a little bit of form, and I think Jesus, the way he played yesterday, there's something there for him. I think in this game.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up for this episode. But thanks everyone for taking the time to view the content. If you got to this point, we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one when we fingers crossed continue our nice little run now against Brighton, and hopefully Man City have wet the bed at Goodison Park. But let's keep fingers crossed and do what we need to do.
Yeah, thanks guys. Remember to like and subscribe, send us a comments or whatever, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye, Moody Gooners. See you next time.
Bye.